Hello, everyone. I am so excited to be back doing lives coming off of a sabbatical, and it has been one of the coolest experiences to be able to sit back and really evaluate, analyze, slow down to just be a mom for the last several months and evaluate everything that's going on, not only in my life, my family's life, my business, my work, and the world. And I want to talk about this thing that I really do feel like is like the real pandemic. And this is not to dismiss what happened through the pandemic, but I feel like we're facing a challenge, particularly with the election that just came through last week, the way people are responding about it, the way people were responding leading up to it, the divorce rate increase, the crime rate increase, all the things that have been happening in our world. And I really feel like the real pandemic is a lack of emotional intelligence. And let me explain why I think this. Let me first explain to you what emotional intelligence is and isn't. A lot of people hear emotional intelligence and they're like, oh my gosh, I get to get all woo-wooey and fluffy with my emotions and I have to sit and cry for an hour every day. That's just simply not true. Okay, that's just not the case. That's not what emotional intelligence is. Emotional intelligence is being able to actually feel your emotions, address them, regulate them, and then respond out of a objective place where your emotions aren't necessarily leading the response. Now, depending on the study that you look at, 90 to 95% of our decisions are based out of emotions. And when we are emotionally dysregulated, which can mean you're one of those people that stuffs emotions, you don't talk about your emotions, you pretend that emotions don't exist, you are just content, not having not expressing your emotions, not having them, if you will. That's emotional dysregulation, just as much as the person who is off the hook. Like you walk on eggshells, you never want to say anything because you never know how they're going to respond. Those are both emotionally dysregulated. Being regulated in your emotions means emotions can come, you can feel them, you can be in them, you can sit with them for a certain amount of time. It doesn't mean forever. And then you can let them go. And then you can move on with your life, right? And so as we clarify what EQ is, people often call it EQ, emotional intelligence. As we clarify what that is, now I want to move forward into this thing that we call at Modig Leadership a conditional gap. We've got social conditioning, parental conditioning, school conditioning, and religious conditioning. By the time we're 7, our brain has formed a full set of neural pathways of what our belief structure is. Now, this becomes the 95% of our brain utilization, which is our subconscious. 5% is the frontal lobe, 95% is conscious, right? 95% is we're operating and making decisions and doing all these things in our daily life out of our subconscious programming and we don't realize it. So what happens when you've got this, the conditional gap is where you were created to be something. You are now living out of a life that is where you were conditioned to be something. So there's this gap between who you were created to be and who you were conditioned to be. And most of the time, what we find is that people are living out of the conditioned self. They're living from that belief structure, that conditional gap, plus their life experiences. That now becomes the lens with which they look through in life. And that's also the lens of which they're making decisions. They're making like very important decisions, critical decisions. I see it with teams all the time. And here's an example. If you were little and you jumped your bike off of a jump and you broke your arm and you completely got scolded by your mom or your dad and they were like, you are an idiot, you can't take that risk, like how dare you, shame on you, yeah, all the things, right? And they shut you down for taking a risk. You may have created a belief structure in that subconscious that now says you're risk averse. You don't want to take risks. You play it really safe. You want to make sure that there no damage can be done. So as a result, now fast forward in relationships or in business, you may not take that business opportunity, purchase that business, make that hire, do whatever it might be, because it seems too risky. And your subconscious is driving that decision based out of what happened when you were 7. And if you don't deal with those beliefs, and I call it the bag. For any of you who have seen me speak, I literally unpack a bag where we've got all of these things where we're walking around with our baggage in a for real way that is really inhibiting our ability to be productive, to make proper decisions, to be kind to other people. You know, I always say, people always say, you can only give what you have for yourself. Well, I say you can only give or get what you have for yourself, right? And we take that a step further where I can only give forgiveness if I've forgiven myself. I can only receive full forgiveness without berating myself and making myself feel guilty if I've given it to myself first also, right? So we can only give or get what we have for ourselves. That bag, what's in that bag, inhibits us from this freedom of channel of having full authentic relationships with people. It also inhibits us. I'll give an example. I had a really good friend who was friends for years, and just recently I found out some things about them that everything was a complete lie, complete inauthentic relationship that that now has like severed the relationship in a way that it was not real. We present ourselves in ways that are not authentic, that are not real, and those truths always come out in some way, shape, or form. I see it a lot with teams where we've got some people in a seat, they're doing a certain job when they're not created to do that job. That's not going to be the best job that they could do, right? And so literally, as we move forward as a society, what happens when we're in this conditional gap is we lose our identity in who we were created to be. And our identity becomes attached to other people. It becomes attached to a certain president getting elected. It becomes attached to that person that I was married to and now we're divorced and now I don't know who I am. It becomes attached to a career or a job or something outside of you. Your identity then becomes attached to something outside of you, and you are no longer living your authentic purpose of who God, universe, source, I don't care what anybody wants to call it these days, but you're now not living out of what you're created to be. And when you're living out of the essence of what you can give the world that nobody else can give, there are only two, I see Shelby and Joseph, there's only two Shelbys in the planet. Shelby can bring the world a gift that I can't bring. And it's strictly based out of her DNA, her conditional gap, coupled with her life experiences, which now becomes the lens with which she looks through. And Shelby gets to give wisdom to us that I can't give. Same thing with Joseph, right? Like his whole experience, the things that he's overcome, the life that he's made for himself and his wife and his family is just phenomenal. Joseph gets to bring an experience that I can't give you. And I just really want to beseech everyone to stop with the division. Can we just stop with the division? Everybody is different and it's okay. And start embracing that we have differences. I very intentionally align myself with people who have different beliefs than I do, and that is on purpose. It sharpens me. It causes me to question my beliefs, like maybe I'm off base, maybe there's something for me to learn here. And when we are open-minded and we're willing to just accept people's differences, love the things that we love about them, embrace those things, and get the joy out of people for those things that they have. And we stop focusing on the things that are outside of our control, that are outside of our identity, right? When we're arguing with people over policies or something of the like, we're putting ourselves and our affirmation and our worth in the policies and winning that argument instead of actually being confident in who we are, trusting in our authentic identity and stepping into that space. And so that would be my launching point, if you will, as I step back into my career, which I'm coming with such beautiful energy that I've never actually had before. Sitting back was actually the best thing that I could have done. And as we step forward and we roll out all these things, this is going to be an area of focus where we're going to close that gap between who you were created to be versus who you were conditioned to be. I'm going to teach you how to close that gap. So you get to live a full, authentic life that is full of joy, that you're confident in. You're not changing and you're not wavering every other day. You get to be exactly who you were created to be. And when you do that, think of the people who walk into a room and they light up a room where everybody's head just turns. They have nothing different than you have. They just know who they are and they're confident in who they are, and they've stepped into that space and they're able to lead out of that space. They're able to live out of that space. They're able to be a parent and a neighbor and a friend and in relationships and CEO and all the things that are required of them in their life out of that space and that space alone. And they're not tossed to and fro by the winds of the world and the waves in the ocean, right? They're anchored. and who they're created to be, and knowing that whatever happens outside of them can't change that. So if that's something that you're interested in, keep following along. We're going to have our Wednesday lives back. We're rolling out a bunch of training in January for people. If that's something you're interested in, put Gap in, either DM me Gap or put Gap in the comments, and we'll make sure that you get on that list when that comes out. And I can't wait to have a more unified world of people that are authentically stepping into their space and living out of the full joy and essence of who they are. All right, have a great day.